The Indiana Fever could soon be changing ownership. There is a man most Fever fans have never heard of, yet he may become the most important figure in the future of this franchise. His net worth is nearly $9 billion. He has already invested more than $500 million to acquire a stake in the organization, and a legal agreement exists that could give him full control of the team whenever Herb Simon decides to step away. His name is Stephen Rales. But to understand why this matters, you must first understand what Herb Simon built, and how close everything came to disappearing. To grasp the full story, you need to go back to 1983, to a decision that saved basketball in Indiana. Herb Simon was born in Brooklyn in 1934. He did not grow up wealthy, but he didn't inherit anything. Along with his brother Mel, he built Simon Property Group from the ground up, purchasing land, constructing shopping malls, and expanding across the country one property at a time. By 1983, they were successful, but they had not yet become the billionaires they would later be. That same year, the Indiana Pacers were in serious trouble, real trouble. The franchise was losing money rapidly. Ownership was desperate to sell, and there were quiet but very real discussions about moving the team out of Indianapolis altogether. Longtime basketball fans who remember that period know just how close the Pacers came to leaving. Herb Simon stepped in. He and Mel purchased the Pacers for $11 million. At the time, many believed it was a risky decision. The team was struggling. The market was small. And the NBA was nowhere near the global powerhouse it is today. But Herb Simon wasn't making a financial investment. He was making a commitment to the city he called home that he relocated to Indianapolis, put down roots, and over the next 4 decades, through losing seasons, coaching changes, and economic downturns, he never wavered. Then came 1999. The WNBA was expanding, awarding new franchises to cities that could prove demand, and the standard was high. Each city needed 5,500 season ticket commitments before the league would approve a team. Indianapolis wanted in, but selling thousands of tickets for a brand new women's professional basketball league in a market that had never seen it before was no easy task. Herb Simon didn't delegate the responsibility. He took it on personally. And when everything was finished, he had sold 4,500 of the required 5,500 tickets himself. Think about that, one man delivering 82% of the total, simply because he believed that's how the Indiana Fever was born, operating under Pacers Sports and Entertainment, the organization that owns and manages both the Indiana Pacers and the Fever under one umbrella. But the early years were difficult. The Fever finished 9-23 in their first season, one of the worst records in the league. The arena seats were far from full, and the city wasn't paying much attention. Behind closed doors, the situation grew even darker. By 2009, after years of losing seasons and sparse crowds, ownership held a serious internal meeting. The Fever were losing money, and something had to change. The message to the organization was direct and blunt. Win on the court and at the box office, or the future of this franchise in Indianapolis would not be guaranteed. That's how close it became. The Fever nearly disappeared. What saved them was a player named Tamika Catchings. Drafted 3rd overall in 2001, Catchings missed her entire rookie season after tearing her ACL. She returned the following year, and became the heart and soul of the franchise. A 5-time Defensive Player of the Year and the WNBA MVP in 2011, she was a generational talent who chose to spend her entire career in Indiana. Even though she could have played anywhere, in 2012, Catchings led the Fever to their first and only WNBA championship. And there was Herb Simon, the owner who had kept the franchise alive through all those difficult years, watching his team celebrate on the court. For fans who had followed the Fever for decades, that championship was the reward for years of patience and belief. But then came the dark years once again. After Catchings retired in 2016, the Fever collapsed. They went 9-25 in 2017, and then worse and worse again. By 2022, they finished 5-31, one of the worst records in the league. The arenas that once pulsed with Catchings' energy grew quiet. Some games attracted only a few thousand fans. The Fever had become an afterthought. By then, Herb Simon was in his late 80s. His son, Stephen Simon, a minority owner and alternate governor of Pacers Sports and Entertainment, had assumed greater day-to-day responsibility. The franchise was at its lowest point in years. Then everything changed on April 15, 2024, at the WNBA draft in Brooklyn. The Indiana Fever selected Caitlin Clark with the first overall pick. What followed defied all expectations. Clark sold out arenas across the league before playing a single professional game. Opposing teams moved their home games into larger venues to accommodate the crowds coming to see her. The Fever recorded the highest average attendance in WNBA history. Television ratings for women's basketball shattered records that had stood for 2 decades. When Kelly Krauskopf returned as president of basketball operations in late 2024, she found a franchise transformed. The infrastructure, the attention, the financial momentum. It was a completely different organization. Overnight, a team that once played in front of a few thousand fans became a national, then global phenomenon. 90 years old. Herb Simon had held onto this team through 5 to 31 seasons and lived to see it become one of the most talked about franchises in American sports. But here's the part few are saying out loud: he's 90. He recently retired from Simon Property Group, the company he spent 65 years building. Stephen Simon now manages most day-to-day operations for Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Herb has stepped back. The question is no longer whether a succession plan exists, it's who is in it. Enter Steven Rawls. Rawls is 72 years old. He grew up in Indiana, graduated from DePaul University in Greencastle, and went on to co-found one of the most powerful corporations in the world. Danaher Corporation began as a small investment vehicle in the 1980s. Over 4 decades, Rawls and his brother Mitchell built it into a global science and technology powerhouse valued at more than $200 billion through relentless acquisitions, operational excellence, and long-term strategy. That's his blueprint. Find something with deep value, buy in, scale it, and think in decades, not quarters. Before anyone even noticed, Rawls had quietly acquired 5% of Pacers Sports and Entertainment. Then, in late 2023, he purchased another 15%, paying over $500 million for a 20% stake, valuing the franchise at approximately $3.47 billion. Herb Simon publicly welcomed him, calling Rawls "my good friend" and praising his strong Indiana ties. But Sportico, which broke the story, revealed something far more significant. The agreement includes a pathway for Rawls to gain control of the franchise if the Simon family ever decides to sell. That is not a passive investment. That is a strategic position, a legal foothold. The kind of move made by someone planning for the future, not just the present. And consider the timing. When Rawls bought in during late 2023, the Fever was still rebuilding. Caitlin Clark hadn't even been drafted yet that time. The franchise was valued at approximately $90 million, already a significant figure for a WNBA team. Today, Sportico's latest estimates place its value at more than $300 million. That is not a mistake. In just 18 months, the franchise has more than tripled in value, fueled by Caitlin Clark's arrival, surging attendance, and a $2.22 billion WNBA media rights deal that completely reshaped the league's financial landscape. Expansion franchises in Portland and Toronto recently paid $250 million each just to enter the league. Games are now selling out months in advance. The asset that Steven Rawls has a pathway to control has skyrocketed in value. And it may still be far from its peak. So what would ownership under Rawls actually look like? We can't know for certain, but we can examine how he operates. Last June, he chartered a flight to Oklahoma City for the NBA Finals, bringing not only players and executives, but also the entire Pacers Sports and Entertainment staff. That kind of gesture costs real money, and builds real loyalty. Coaches have publicly thanked him. He shows up. More importantly, Danaher Corporation's entire growth strategy has been built on identifying undervalued assets and aggressively scaling them through investment and infrastructure. Right now, the Indiana Fever fit that model almost perfectly. A powerful brand, explosive growth, and infrastructure still racing to catch up. Their dedicated practice facility, part of a league-wide push toward elite professional standards, won't even open until 2027, there is a version of the Fever's future in which Steven Ralls decides to build this franchise the way the Golden State Warriors were built in the 2000s, not just as a winning team, but as a global sports brand. A destination organization that attracts players, sponsors, and worldwide attention. Herb Simon built this franchise on loyalty and love for Indiana. That matters. His will reportedly includes provisions to keep the team in Indianapolis. This is not a man who would ever relocate his team for profit. But loyalty and long-term vision are not always the same. Here's where things stand now. The Indiana Fever are more valuable than they have ever been. Caitlin Clark is set to return healthy in 2026. A new collective bargaining agreement is being negotiated, one that could dramatically reshape the league's economic structure. 2 new franchises just paid $250 million each to join. The WNBA stands on the edge of a transformation similar to what the NBA experienced in the early 1990s, just before it exploded into a global phenomenon. And the man with the clearest path to owning the centerpiece franchise of that future is a 72-year-old billionaire who has already invested over $500 million to get his foot in the door. Herb Simon personally sold 4,500 tickets to bring women's basketball to Indiana. He wrote the checks when no one else would. He kept the franchise alive through losing seasons, through 5-31 records, and through years when few people were watching. He deserves immense credit for what this team has become. But at 90 years old, with a franchise he loves now valued at over $300 million and rising, with a succession agreement already in place, and with Caitlin Clark turning the Indiana Fever into a global spectacle, the next chapter of this story may already be written. Steven Ralls is simply waiting for the right moment to turn the page.